let's dive deep today. We're going to be tackling injury prevention programs in sports.
Sounds good.
And whether you're an athlete yourself, a coach, or just a huge sports fan, I think we all know that frustration, seeing a promising season or even like an entire career just totally derailed by injuries. It's rough, right?
It is.
But what if I told you that there are proven ways to drastically reduce those risks?
I'd say, tell me more.
Well, get this.
Okay.
Some programs claim to cut injury rates by 50 to 80%.
Wow.
So today we're going to unpack exactly how these programs work, why they're so effective, and which ones are leading the charge in some of your favorite sports.
Right.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
So I think what's so fascinating about this topic is that we often think of injuries as just bad luck, right? It's like, oh, wrong place, wrong time.
Right.
But the research shows us that athlete availability, it's a huge factor in success, both for teams and individuals.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's not just about one player being out. It impacts the entire team dynamic.
Right. Totally. So let's put some numbers to that. How much of a difference does staying injury-free really make?
Well, there have been studies that have found a strong inverse relationship between injury burden and team performance.
Okay.
So basically, the more injuries, the worse the team does.
Makes sense.
Lower availability means we disrupted practice. You've got holes in the lineup. It's like trying to build a house with missing bricks.
Right. Yeah.
And even in individual sports, consistency of training is massive. One study found that elite track and field athletes who completed 80% of their planned training were 7 times more likely to hit their goals.
7 times. That's insane. I mean, that's the difference between just playing the game and actually becoming a champion.
Absolutely.
So clearly, staying healthy is non-negotiable, right?
Right.
But how do we actually do that?
That's where these standardized injury prevention programs come in. They're not just, some trendy fitness fad. They're built on solid research, and they're making a real impact.
Okay, I'm hooked. Break it down for me. What makes these programs so effective?
They typically combine a few key elements. You've got plyometrics for explosive movements, neuromuscular control for better balance and agility, and then, of course, good old-fashioned strength training.
Right.
But the real magic is how they tailor these elements to the specific demands of each sport.
Okay, so it's not one size fits all. It's about getting strategic.
Exactly.
I like it. Okay. Let's dive into some specific examples. And since we're both, I think, football fans, why don't we start there?
Sure.
Even at the professional level, those guys seem to be dropping like flies every other week. It's brutal.
It's true. Football has a high injury rate. Studies show elite players can suffer 12 to 35 injuries per 1,000 hours of gameplay.
Wow.
The most common are muscle strains, ligament sprains, and contusions, especially around the ankle, knee, and groin.
Ouch, yeah. Those are some key areas for any footballer. So what are they doing to combat this?
Well, back in 2006, FIFA rolled out a game changer, the FIFA11 Plus program.
FIFA11 Plus, Birchie.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's specifically designed to reduce injury risk, and it's got 3 key parts.
All right, FIFA11 Plus said, let's break it down. Part 1.
Part 1 focuses on running exercises and dynamic stretching. Think of it as prepping the body for the demands to come. It's not just about getting warm, it's about activating specific muscle groups and improving flexibility in a way that directly translates to football movements.
Okay. So warming up with a purpose.
Yeah.
I like it. What about Part 2?
Part 2 is where we build that solid foundation. It includes 6 sets of exercises targeting core strength, leg strength, balance, agility, and plyometrics. This is about building the muscular support and stability needed to handle those quick cuts, jumps, and tackles.
Makes sense. You need a strong core and powerful legs to play your best and stay injury-free. All right, bring on Part 3.
All right, Part 3 is where we really simulate the demands of the game. It involves moderate to high-speed running exercises, including planting, cutting, and pivoting. Those movements that are so common in football and often lead to injuries if you're not prepared.
Right. So it's like taking all that strength and control you built in Part 2 and really putting it to the test. I can already see how this program would make a difference.
And the research backs it up. Studies show FIFA11 Plus has led to significant reductions in overall injuries, with some showing a remarkable 77% decrease in ACL injuries.
77%. Now that's what I call a game changer. No wonder it's become the gold standard for injury prevention in football.
It's true. FIFA11 Plus has been hugely influential, and here in Australia, we've taken it even further with the development of Perform Plus Go.
Perform Plus, oh, okay, tell me more. What's the Aussie twist?
It's like FIFA11 Plus evolved. It offers coaches more flexibility to tailor the program to their team's needs, and it places a bigger emphasis on preventing those tricky hip and groin injuries.
Smart move, considering how common those are in football. So if any of our listeners want to check out Perform plus SNAR, where should they go?
All the info and resources are on the Football NSW website, footballnsw.com.au. They've got everything you need to get started.
Perfect. Now, let's move on to a sport that's super popular, especially among female athletes. Netball. I know those fast-paced movements can put a lot of stress on the body.
You're right, and unfortunately, knee and ankle injuries are incredibly common in netball. We're talking about 3/4 of all injuries reported, with a quarter of those being serious ACL injuries.
Wow, those are some scary statistics. Sounds like netball needs a strong defense when it comes to injury prevention.
Absolutely. And Netball Australia has stepped up to the challenge with the K-knee program.
Okay, the K&E program, I like it already. Tell me, what makes this program unique?
So we've just heard about some incredible programs, that are designed for specific sports. But injuries aren't limited to just the football pitch or the netball court. They can
Wow.
happen in any sport, all right? You're absolutely right. Whether it's basketball, soccer, running, swimming, every activity comes with its own set of risks.
Right.
And while we can't eliminate risk entirely, we can get much smarter about how we approach prevention.
Okay, so let's zoom out a bit. What are some of those universal principles of injury prevention that apply across the board, like regardless of what sport you're playing?
Well, one of the most fundamental principles is proper training and conditioning.
Okay.
It's about gradually increasing the intensity and duration of your workouts and avoiding those sudden jumps that can really shock your body. It's like that saying, slow and steady wins the race. But sometimes it's so tempting to just push harder and faster.
I get it. I get it. That desire to push limits is part of what makes us athletes,
Oh.
But it's a balancing act. Challenge yourself, yes, but respect your body's limits. Think of it like building a house. You need a strong foundation before you start adding all those floors. Yeah, I like that. Solid analogy. So gradual progression is key. What else should athletes keep in mind?
Warm-up and cool-down routines.
Okay.
Often overlooked, but incredibly important. A good warm-up preps your muscles for action, increasing blood flow, flexibility, and then a cool-down helps reduce soreness and stiffness afterward.
I'll admit I've been guilty of skipping the cool down in the past, but I'm starting to see how even just those few extra minutes can make a big difference in recovery.
They really can. It's all about giving your body the care it deserves, both before and after activity. Speaking of care, let's talk about technique.
Okay, technique. I can see how, having good form would be important, but how does that directly relate to injury prevention?
Well, using proper technique in your sport means you're minimizing stress on your joints and muscles. Bad form can put your body in all sorts of awkward positions, increasing the risk of strain or injury.
It's like a car running smoothly versus one that has, a misaligned wheel or something like that. Eventually, something's going to break down.
Exactly. So whether you're a runner, a swimmer, a weightlifter, invest the time in learning good technique. A qualified coach or instructor can be invaluable here. They can provide that personalized guidance and feedback.
Right, right. Okay, so we've got training, warm-up, cool-down, and technique all playing a part. What else contributes to a solid injury prevention strategy?
One that often gets forgotten: rest and recovery. It's tempting to think more is always better when it comes to training, but adequate rest is crucial for allowing those muscles to repair and rebuild, making them stronger and more resilient.
So it's not just about pushing harder, it's about knowing when to ease up. It's like, recharging your batteries. You can't run on empty forever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's finding that balance between training and recovery that optimizes both performance and injury prevention. And of course, this balance will be different for everyone. Depends on their training load, their age, and other individual factors.
Right. It all comes down to, listening to your body and understanding its unique needs. So we've talked about, the training itself, but what about the equipment we use? Does that factor into injury prevention at all?
Absolutely. Using appropriate and well-maintained equipment is essential.
Okay.
That means everything from footwear that fits properly and provides adequate support, to protective gear like helmets for cycling, to making sure you're using well-maintained weights at the gym, that kind of thing.
So it's not just about taking care of our bodies, but it's also taking care of the tools that we use to push those bodies.
Precisely.
Ah,
Now let's get a little more specific. Are there any common injuries that we can address with more targeted prevention strategies.
Yes, I was hoping you would ask that. I think almost everyone has experienced the pain of a sprained ankle at some point.
You're right, ankle sprains are incredibly common across a variety of sports.
Yeah.
And it happens when those ligaments that support the ankle joint get stretched or torn.
Ouch. Yeah, I've been there. So what can we do to protect those, vulnerable ankles?
One of the most effective strategies is focusing on exercises that improve balance and proprioception.
Proprioception, that's a new one. What is that exactly?
Proprioception is your body's awareness of its position in space. It's that unconscious sense that tells you where your limbs are without having to look.
Oh, okay. So how does that tie into ankle sprains?
When you have good proprioception, you're more likely to catch yourself before you twist or roll your ankle.
Gotcha. Okay.
The exercises that improve this are all about strengthening those muscles around the ankle and training your body to react quickly to uneven surfaces.
So it's like giving your ankles a built-in stability system.
Exactly. And the best part is, these exercises are pretty simple. Things like standing on one leg, using a wobble board, or even just walking on uneven surfaces can make a huge difference.
Easy enough. All right. So we got a plan for our ankles. What about those knees? I've heard a lot about runner's knee, and it sounds pretty debilitating.
Runner's knee, or patellofemoral pain syndrome, is definitely a common issue, especially for runners. But it can affect athletes in other sports, too. It's that pain around the kneecap, often caused by overuse, muscle imbalances, or poor running mechanics.
So it's not just one thing. It's like a combination of factors that can lead to runner's knee.
Right, and luckily there's a lot runners can do to prevent and manage it. One key strategy is strengthening those muscles that support the knee joint. So that's your quadriceps, your hamstrings, your hip abductors.
Okay, so strong muscles are crucial for healthy knees. Anything else?
Flexibility is just as important. Tight hamstrings and hip flexors can pull on the kneecap, contributing to that pain. So regular stretching is a must.
Got it. Strong and flexible muscles for happy knees.
Oh.
What about running form itself? Does that play a role in runner's knee?
Absolutely. Good running form is essential. Landing lightly on your feet, avoiding overstriding, and maintaining a good cadence. These all help to minimize the stress on the knees.
Yeah, I imagine a good coach or like a running expert could really help with analyzing and improving form.
Definitely, they can spot those little biomechanical quirks that might be contributing to knee pain.
Right. Okay, we've covered some really great general principles and some more targeted strategies for those common injuries. Before we move on, is there anything else you'd like to add about, just this physical side of injury prevention?
I think the main point to emphasize is that knowledge is power. The more we understand about those common causes of injuries and the strategies that work, the better equipped we are to stay active and do what we love.
I couldn't agree more. It's all about taking that proactive approach to our health and well-being. But as we all know, an athlete is more than just muscles and bones, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole mental game that comes with training and competition.
You're leading us right into our next discussion, the often overlooked world of mental health in sports.
We spent the last two parts of this deep dive, getting into the nuts and bolts of injury prevention. Everything from those specific programs to those more, universal principles that apply across like any sport you can think of. But there's another side to athlete well-being that we can't ignore.
Yeah.
The mental game.
It's true. You can't just focus on the physical, without acknowledging the mental and emotional demands that come with being an athlete, whether it's, the pressure of competition or the constant drive to improve. I mean, there's a lot going on between the ears.
Yeah. It's like having a high-performance engine, but forgetting to check the fuel gauge and the oil levels.
Right.
Sooner or later, that engine's going to sputter out.
That's a great analogy. And luckily, there's been a growing recognition of the importance of mental health in sports, from, the grassroots all the way up to the elite level.
Okay, so let's dive in. What are some of the mental health challenges that athletes might face?
One of the most common is performance anxiety. It's that feeling of pressure, nervousness, or even outright fear that can hit before or during competition.
Yeah, I think we've all experienced that feeling at some point, even if we're not, professional athletes. But I imagine the stakes are much higher when, your performance is being judged or you're representing an entire team.
Absolutely. And if performance anxiety isn't managed effectively, it can really impact an athlete's focus, their confidence, and ultimately their ability to perform at their best.
Yeah, so it's not just about, feeling nervous. It's about those nerves actually getting in the way of your game.
Exactly.
What are some strategies for, dealing with performance anxiety?
One very effective approach is cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. It helps athletes identify and challenge those negative thoughts and beliefs that are fueling the anxiety.
So it's about changing the script in your head, replacing those self-defeating thoughts with more like positive and realistic ones.
Exactly. And there are also techniques like mindfulness and relaxation exercises that can be incredibly helpful.
Mm.
These tools help athletes calm their nerves and stay present in the moment rather than getting caught up in those what-if scenarios.
Right. So it's like training your mind to like stay focused on the task at hand rather than letting those anxious thoughts run wild.
You got it. Now, another mental health challenge that we often see in athletes is burnout. This is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion that can result from chronic stress and overtraining.
Burnout sounds pretty serious. What are some of the signs that someone might be like heading towards burnout?
It can manifest in different ways, but some common signs include loss of motivation, decreased performance, increased irritability, persistent fatigue, and difficulty sleeping.
So it's not just about feeling tired, it's like a deeper sense of exhaustion that affects your mood, your motivation, and even your sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's crucial to catch burnout early and take steps to address it before it leads to more serious consequences.
Okay, so let's say you're an athlete who's, feeling those symptoms of burnout. What can you do to like recover and get back on track?
Well, one of the most important things is to set realistic goals and expectations. It's so easy to get caught up in the pressure to constantly push harder, but it's crucial to listen to your body and mind and allow yourself to rest and recover.
Right. It goes back to that balance we were talking about earlier, finding that sweet spot between, pushing yourself and knowing your limits.
Right. And having a strong support system is huge. Coaches, teammates, friends, family. Surrounding yourself with people who understand and support your mental health journey can make all the difference.
It sounds like communication is key here, being able to talk openly about how you're feeling and, seeking support when you need it.
Absolutely. And there's no shame in seeking professional help from a sports psychologist or a therapist. They have specialized training and experience in working with athletes and can provide the tools and guidance you need to navigate these challenges.
Yeah, it's great that those resources are becoming more available and that, like, the stigma around mental health is starting to fade.
It really is a positive shift in the world of sports. Now, are there any other mental health considerations that are especially relevant to athletes?
That's a great question. I think one that often gets overlooked is the issue of identity and self-worth. For a lot of athletes, their sport becomes such a central part of who they are.
You're right. And while that can be a source of great pride and motivation, it can also make athletes vulnerable to feelings of inadequacy or failure if they experience setbacks or don't live up to expectations, whether those are their own expectations or, pressure from others.
It's like their entire sense of self-worth gets tied to their performance on the field or court.
Exactly. So it becomes crucial to maintain a healthy perspective and recognize that you are more than just an athlete. Your value as a person extends far beyond your achievements in sports.
That's such an important message, especially for like young athletes who are still figuring out who they are. And it reinforces the importance of, having that strong support system. Those people in your life who value you for who you are, not just for like your wins and losses.
Couldn't agree more. It's also about developing coping mechanisms for dealing with setbacks because, let's face it, disappointments are inevitable in any sport.
Yeah, it's not about avoiding those setbacks altogether. It's about learning to like reframe them as opportunities for growth and learning from those mistakes.
Exactly. That's what builds resilience.
Well, we've covered so much ground in this deep dive into injury prevention, from the physical strategies to the, often overlooked mental and emotional aspects. It's been a truly fascinating journey.
It really has. And I think the takeaway here is that athlete well-being is multifaceted. It's about taking care of your physical health, your mental health, and nurturing your overall sense of self.
And while we focused on athletes in this deep dive, I think these principles apply to, really anyone, whether you're a coach, a parent, or just someone who wants to live a healthy and fulfilling life. It's all about prevention, resilience, and self-care.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We're all in this together. Let's support each other, stay healthy, and keep striving for our best selves, both on and off the field.
That's a great message to wrap up on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into injury prevention. Until next time, stay safe, stay active, and keep those minds and bodies strong.
See you next time.